Hello and welcome to the virtual Milan AgResearch and Education Center overview tour. My name is Blake Brown. I'm a director here at the AgResearch Center in Milan, and I have two of our research associates with me today, Weston Bracey here to my left and Chris Bridges just past Weston. We are missing Jason Williams today, who's been a research associate longer than these two guys, but he's unable to be here, but wish he were. But we're going to take advantage of an opportunity through this virtual means to show you some of our center that we don't always get to do. So hop in the truck and we're gonna go take a ride. This station was established in 1962, and the first director was a man by the name of Tom McCutcheon. And Tom's claim to fame was that he recognized that West Tennessee was about to wash away and that we had very high rates of soil erosion. And so he started the effort to develop the system that we now know as no-till. Back in those days, before the adoption of no-till, Tennessee was known as having the highest rates of soil erosion anywhere in the country. On our highly erodible land or our sloping land, we were losing as much as 40 to 50 tons per acre per year of topsoil. And he recognized that we couldn't keep doing this and keep farming this land. And so he put together a team of researchers, agronomists, ag engineers, weed scientists, fertility folks, etc., to start seeing how do we do this. Of course, the two big challenges originally were how do we get a seed planted through that crop or that crop residue. And so the engineers went to work on that. The other was tillage been used for thousands of years for weed control. And if we couldn't till, how were we going to control the weeds back in the day when we didn't have herbicide tolerant crops and all those types of things? Those were the two main challenges, but they worked. And adoption of no-till took off, and the most recent statistics show that in Tennessee now, 96% of our acres are farmed with some form of conservation tillage. 80% of the acres this year are farmed with straight no-till, and so we have had a huge adoption in the last 40 years, all thanks to the vision of Mr. Tom McCutcheon. The pond you see over behind was put in 1979 to provide water for a rainfall simulator that we may see some photos of in a little bit. That particular study probably did more to convince people to no-till than anything we've done around here, because we had side-by-side plots on the side of a hill looking at different tillage treatments, and the water was collected, and you could catch the water in a glass, and the water coming off of a conventional till field was muddy, nasty looking. Water coming off of a no-till field was clean and looked like you could drink it. So when people saw that example, they recognized that hey, there's really something to this no-till system. So that was done here for many years, and finally some really good data came off of it, and we confirmed what we thought we were seeing, that we were reducing erosion from 30, 40, 50 tons per acre to less than 5 tons with a no-till system. So our focus on our center now is not as much how to teach people how to no-till, because they're already doing that, but rather how do you incorporate all the new agricultural technologies into a no-till system. So we're working with about 25 different researchers, research and extension faculty from UT, USDA, and occasionally other states, to figure out how to do all these different projects. We have about 180 different research projects underway any particular year. Probably 95% of them are done using a no-till system, but we're looking at everything from pest control with diseases, insects, weeds. We're working with irrigation. We're looking at fertility. We're working with drones and precision ag, and all the other aspects related to no-till crop production. This field on my left here, just outside the truck, we call the earthworm field. It's been continuously no-tilled for 44 years. And most any time, unless it's in the extremely dry part of the summer, you can go out there and stick a shovel in the ground and you're going to turn up earthworms. And one thing we have found is that once you start no-tilling, the earthworms quickly come into that space. They start doing their little channels. And what's the impact on that? Number one, it creates pores for water to go into. If water goes into the soil, it doesn't run off. If it doesn't run off, it doesn't carry soil with it. So they are a big partner of ours in helping with no-till, reducing soil erosion. This area too is under irrigation. We had the opportunity to put in irrigation in about 2001, and we put 2 center pivots and 1 linear system. We have a total of about 125 acres that are underwater. Initially, we didn't have a lot of requests from researchers to do work under irrigation, but in the last 4 or 5 years, that has really changed. And so we now have a lot of competing interests for plot space under irrigation, and I'm glad to say it's all being fully utilized. So things like, when do we start watering? When do we need to stop irrigating different crops? What crop stage? Those types of things. Both of these center pivots have been retrofitted with VRI system, or variable rate irrigation, and Chris will talk about that more in just a minute. But the study out to my left, where you see the corn, cotton, soybeans, that was put in 2002. It's a long-term study looking at various crop rotations across different cover crop scenarios. So in the fall, we plant cover crops crossways to the road direction. Those include wheat, vetch, what's the other one, Weston? Winter pea, Austrian winter pea, and then we have 1 treatment of poultry litter and then a fallow treatment. And then we're looking at all kind of different crop rotations, from continuous corn, cotton, or soybeans to various combinations. And that study has had many research papers published off of it, lots of data collected, and it has been ongoing ever since then. So lots of interest in that, and a lot of good information coming off of that plot.
Farmers have invested a lot of money in our area in the last few years in irrigation systems. And so it's important that our faculty are able to conduct research to answer farmers' questions regarding best use of those irrigation systems, how to optimize yield and minimize runoff. What's different about our irrigation system here is it's got a variable rate irrigation system adaptation on it, which allows us to water at different rates as it goes throughout the field. Most often when you see a center pivot going across the field, it's putting out a single rate. Maybe a ½ inch of water goes across the entire field. We've got a GPS and a cell phone connection on this pivot, which allows us to turn on and off nozzles based upon how we decide to irrigate. What we know about soils in West Tennessee fields is that they vary greatly in their ability to soak up water, so we can put more water out at certain places and less in others, which helps us to conduct research under irrigation systems, and hopefully faculty can provide information for farmers to make best use of their irrigation systems to maximize their yield under irrigation and minimize runoff.
One of our newest projects on the station is here behind me. This was initiated by Dr. Sindhu Jagadama. It's looking at a few different species and mixtures of cover crops, as well as different nitrogen rates, anywhere from 0 to 150 pounds to the acre. You know, we're hoping to see some effect of the cover crops or the nitrogen treatments on this corn. So this will be an interesting project to follow in the coming years. Farmers have a lot of choices when it comes to their varieties. Typically they'll only choose a handful of them, but here we test hundreds of different varieties of corn, cotton, and soybeans, and wheat to hopefully simulate real-world conditions so our producers can see which varieties will work best for them in their area.
We are currently on some of the ground that we lease from the Milan Army Ammunition Plant, and one reason we're over here is we typically don't get to bring people over here during our normal field days, so we wanted to show you some of the other research land that we have available. We've sort of got 3 different types of property. We have regular dry land, hill ground we call it. We have irrigated hill ground like this here, and then we have some over in the creek bottoms on the south track that we'll go to in a few minutes. So just wanted to show you, like I said, on our regular overview tour, we probably see 25% of the research center, and since we're virtual this year, we thought we would show a little bit of the other things that we do. So
Faculty have been conducting research on soil fertility and plant nutrition for many decades. However, new products become available to farmers every year. Here, the research crew of Dr. Frank Yen is evaluating some foliar phosphorus and potassium products on soybeans. Over the last few years, farmers in our area have had a lot of questions for University of Tennessee Extension and Research Specialists about the use of poultry litter in no-till crops. Particularly how it compares to other forms of fertilizer that are available. And as a means of answering those questions that farmers have, university faculty have started a few new experiments here at the Research Center at Milan, looking at poultry litter on corn, cotton, and soybeans.
Well, I talked earlier about we are focused on this research center on row crops grown in West Tennessee. And as a result, we have a pretty wide complement of equipment that allows us to do research with about any kind of row crop experiment we can come up with. We have small research scale equipment, like the little plot combine that's over here. This is one of our 3 plot combines that we have on our center that we use for harvesting corn, soybeans, and wheat plots. You know, they're not useful for anything except harvesting research plots, but they allow us to take a weight, get a moisture, and then we can use that data to calculate our yields for the various plots. We also have a plot cotton picker. We have field scale combines, cotton pickers that all are equipped with yield monitors. We have all kinds of planters, drills, sprayers, fertilizer applicators. Again, most anything that researchers might need to conduct research. One point about this research equipment, it's very expensive. This little combine will cost just as much as that great big one. Those are $300,000 plus now. And so we try to take good care of them, get a lot of use out of them, and we've got one that was built in 1971, I think. So it's getting pretty old, but still going strong. So we keep those going. But it's a constant challenge to keep up with new technology on equipment, and but we've been able to do a pretty good job of doing that. The cemetery for the folks that originally settled this land, and we've got some of the information about the family up in the museum. The sign says it was established in 1834, so I think that's when the oldest grave is there. Interesting thing about the family, and we have a will from the father of the group, and he mentions that he gives so much of his estate to this one child and so much to this other child, and then he says into this other one he gets the sum of $1 and no more. So apparently somebody made Papa mad. Welcome to the UT AgResearch and Education Center at Milan South Track. This is part of the original property donated by the Milan Arsenal back in 1962. Much of this track is in the Wolf Creek bottom. This bottom ground is representative of a lot of creek or river bottoms that are seen throughout West Tennessee. These soils are very productive. They produce well during the dry year. However, they are subject to flooding. But we do a lot of plot work down here. As you can see, this cotton behind us, this is a lot of Dr. Tyson Raper's work. One of the few spots on the center that is tilled. He likes to put his cotton on beds, and so this ground is worked and bedded, and we try to keep the beds a couple of years before we have to rebed those. But just another environment that our researchers have available to them to do plot research. We have about 100 acres down in this bottom and across the highway. And so, as I mentioned before, we have bottomlands, we have hills that are irrigated, and dryland hills. So pretty typical of West Tennessee soils.